my first startup, the mistake was having too.
I love the internet story in that even back then, you are a lot like the people in this room back then, in that, the heads of all the CEOs of all the legacy media companies look to you as the person who understood the internet. And a lot of the world, the corporate world, like the world at large that does not understand what's happening with AI, they're going to look to the people in this room for exactly that. It sounds like, what are some of the tangible lessons? It sounds like one of them is don't give up board control, or be careful about, have a really good lawyer.
I guess with my first startup, the mistake was having too much shareholder and board control from legacy media companies, who then necessarily see things through the lens of legacy media, and that they'll kind of make you do things that seem sensible to them, but really don't make sense with the new technology. I should point out that I didn't actually at first intend to start a company. I tried to get a job at Netscape. I sent my resume into Netscape, and Mark Andreessen knows about this. But I don't think he ever saw my resume, and then nobody responded. So, and then I tried hanging out in the lobby of Netscape to see if I could bump into someone, but I was too shy to talk to anyone. So I'm like, man, this is ridiculous. So I'll just write software myself and see how it goes. So it wasn't actually from the standpoint of I want to start a company. I just want to be part of building, the internet in some way. And since I couldn't get a job at an internet company, I had to start an internet company. Anyway, I mean, from an AI will so profoundly change the future. It's difficult to fathom how much, but the economy, assuming things don't go awry, and AI doesn't kill us or will end itself, then you'll see ultimately an economy that is not 10 times more than the current economy. Ultimately, if we become, say, or whatever our future machine descendants, but mostly machine descendants, become like a Kardashev scale 2 civilization or beyond, we're talking about an economy that is thousands of times, maybe millions of times bigger than the economy today. So, I mean, I did sort of feel a bit when I was in DC, taking a lot of flack for getting rid of waste and fraud, which was an interesting side quest, as side quests go. But
got to get back to the main quest.
Yeah, I got to get back to the main quest here. So back to the main quest. But I did feel, a little bit there's, it's fixing the government is kind of there's say, the beach is dirty and there's some needles and feces and trash, and you want to clean up the beach. But then there's also this 1,000-foot wall of water, which is a tsunami of AI. And how much does cleaning the beach really matter if you got a 1,000-foot tsunami about to hit? Not that much.
Oh, so we're glad you're back on the main quest. It's very important.
Yeah, back to the main quest. Building technology, which is what I like doing. It's just so much noise. The signal-to-noise ratio in politics is terrible. So,
I mean, I live in San Francisco, so you don't need to tell me twice.
Yeah, DC is kind of. I guess it's all politics in DC, but if you're trying to build a rocket or cars, or you're trying to have software that compiles and runs reliably, then you have to be maximally truth-seeking, or your software or your hardware won't work. You can't fool math. Math and physics are rigorous judges. So I'm used to being in a maximally truth-seeking environment, and that's definitely not politics. So anyway, I'm glad to be back in technology.
I guess I'm kind of curious, going back to the Zip2 moment, you had hundreds of millions of dollars, or you had an exit worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
I mean, I got $20 million.
Right. You basically took it and you kept rolling with X.com, which became PayPal and Confinity.
Yes, I kept the chips on the table.
Yeah.
So
not everyone does that. A lot of the people in this room will have to make that decision, actually. What drove you to jump back into the ring?
Well, I think I felt with Zip2, we built like incredible technology, but it never really got used. I think, at least from my perspective, we had better technology than, say, Yahoo or anyone else, but it was constrained by our customers. So I wanted to do something where, okay, we wouldn't be constrained by our customers, go direct to consumer, and that's what ended up being like X.com, PayPal, essentially X.com merging with Confinity, which together created PayPal, and then that actually the sort of PayPal diaspora it might have created more companies than probably anything in the 21st century. So many talented people were at the combination of Confinity and X.com. So I just wanted to, I felt like we kind of got our wings clipped somewhat with Zip2, and it's like, okay, what if our wings aren't clipped and we go direct to consumer? And that's what PayPal ended up being. I got that like $20 million check for my share of Zip2. At the time, I was living in a house with 4 housemates, and had like, I don't know, 10 grand in the bank, and then this check arrives in the mail, of all places, and it's in the mail, and then my bank balance went from 10,000 to 20 million and 10,000. You're like, well, okay, still have to pay taxes on that and all, but then I ended up putting almost all of that into X.com, and as you said, like, just kind of keeping almost all the chips on the table, and then after PayPal, I was like, well, I was kind of curious as to why we had not sent anyone to Mars, and I went on the NASA website to find out when we're sending people to Mars, and there was no date. I thought maybe it was just hard to find on the website, but in fact there was no real plan to send people to Mars. So then, this is such a long story, so I don't want to take up too much time here, but I think
we're all listening with rapt attention.
So I was on the Long Island Expressway with my friend Deo Resi. We were like housemates in college, and Deo was asking me what we're gonna do. What am I gonna do after PayPal? And I was like, I don't know. I guess maybe I'd like to do something philanthropic in space, because I didn't think I could actually do anything commercial in space, because that seemed like the purview of nations. But I'm kind of curious as to when we're going to send people to Mars, and that's when I was like, oh, it's not on the website. And then I started digging there's nothing on the NASA website. So then I started digging in, and I'm definitely summarizing a lot here, but my first idea was to do a philanthropic mission to Mars called Life to Mars, where it would send a small greenhouse with seeds and dehydrated nutrient gel, land that on Mars and grow, hydrate the gel, and then you'd have this great sort of money shot of green plants on a red background. For the longest time, by the way, I didn't realize money shot, I think, is a porn reference, but but anyway, the point is that would be the great shot of green plants on a red background, and to try to inspire NASA and the public to send astronauts to Mars. As I learned more, I came to realize, and along the way, by the way, I went to Russia in like 2001 and 2002 to buy ICBMs, which is like, that's an adventure. You go and meet with Russian high command and say, I'd like to buy some ICBMs.
This was to get to space.
As
a rocket.
Not to nuke anyone, but but they had to, as a result of arms reduction talks, they had to actually destroy a bunch of their big nuclear missiles. So I was like, well, how about if we take 2 of those, minus the nuke, add an additional upper stage for Mars. But it was kind of trippy, being in Moscow in 2001, negotiating with like the Russian military to buy ICBMs. Like, that's crazy. But they kept also like raising the price on me, so like literally it's kind of like the opposite of what a negotiation should do. So I was like, man, these things are getting really expensive. And then I came to realize that actually the problem was not that there was insufficient will to go to Mars, but there was no way to do so without breaking the budget, even breaking the NASA budget. So that's where I decided to start SpaceX to advance rocket technology to the point where we could send people to Mars. And that was in 2002.
So that wasn't, you didn't start out wanting to start a business. You wanted to start just something that was interesting to you, that you thought humanity needed. And then as you sort of, like a cat pulling on, a string, it just sort of, the ball sort of unravels, and it turns out this is could be a very profitable business.
I mean, it is now, but there have been no prior example of really a rocket startup succeeding. There have been various attempts to do commercial rocket companies, and they all failed. So again, with SpaceX, starting SpaceX was really from the standpoint of like, I think there's like a less than 10% chance of being successful, maybe 1%, I don't know. But if a startup doesn't do something to advance rocket technology, it's definitely not coming from the big defense contractors, because they just impedance match to the government, and the government just wants to do very conventional things. So it's either coming from a startup or it's not happening at all. So like a small chance of success is better than no chance of success. And so SpaceX, I started that in mid 2002, expecting to fail. Like I said, probably 90% chance of failing. And even like when recruiting people, I didn't like try to, make out that it would. I said we're probably going to die, but small chance we might not die. And but this is the only way to get people to Mars and advance the state of the art. And then I ended up being chief engineer of the rocket, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't hire anyone who was good. So like none of the good sort of chief engineers would join, because they're like, this is too risky, you're going to die. And so then I ended up being chief engineer of the rocket. And, the first 3 flights did fail, so it's a bit of a learning exercise there. And fourth one fortunately worked. But if the fourth one hadn't worked, I had no money left, and it would have been curtains. So it was a pretty close thing. If the fourth launch of Falcon not work, it would have been just curtains, and we would have just joined the graveyard of prior rocket startups. So like my estimate of success was not far off. We made it by the skin of our teeth. And Tesla was happening sort of simultaneously. Like 2008 was a rough year, because at mid 2008, or called summer 2008, the third launch of SpaceX had failed, a third failure in a row. The Tesla financing round had failed, and so Tesla was going bankrupt fast. It was just it's like, man, this is grim. This is going to be a tale of warning, of an exercise in hubris.